Greetings MechWarriors, this is BlackHawkSC and welcome back to my channel. Previously I did two videos on which mech a new MWO player should buy first, one in 2016 and one in 2018. In both of these videos I recommended the Hellbringer, which is a clan mech, but some really wanted to see an Inner Sphere recommendation. In this video I'll be using the same criteria as I did previously to look at what Inner Sphere mech a new player should buy. By the way, most of the terminology in this video should be familiar to players who have went through the MechWarrior Academy in a few games. So if something doesn't make sense, go to the tutorials in a couple of games first, then ask any questions in the comments below. My first criterion is that it has to be new player friendly. That means it minimizes some of the game's more complex mechanics and is one of the more survivable chassis in the game. The mech should have longevity, which means it's not just a new player mech, but the mech gets better as the player's skill progresses. It has to be affordable enough to be purchased by the cadet bonus from the first 25 games, and it needs to be a good C-bill earner due to the current state of the game being very C-bill intensive. The way to make C-bills is to do well in the game, as earnings is tied to general performance. So the more you win and contribute to the win, the more C-bills you get. Since 2018, I've also reintroduced the criteria that the mech should have build variety. Now the game client has the ability to load and save builds and skill trees, so changing builds on a mech has gotten a lot easier. No longer do you have to spend half an hour to change builds on a mech, increasing the value of mechs that can run multiple builds. What I found was that no Inner Sphere mech was able to do all of the above quite as well as the Hellbringer. For example, a lot of people recommend medium mechs like the Hunchback or Centurion. While they're easy to learn, once a player gets good enough in the game, their relatively low firepower becomes a performance ceiling. You'll find that to be true for many, but of course not all IS mediums, and these mechs often end up sitting in your mech base once you've learned to play better mechs. Then take a mech like the Grasshopper 5H. While it's one of the better IS heavies, it's not as forgiving as the Hellbringer when a player makes a positioning mistake, because it doesn't have ECM. The Thanatos, while it has ECM, that is counterbalanced by its below average hitboxes and limited number of good hardpoint locations. In the end, there is no mech on the IS side that packages so many offensive and defensive capabilities into one chassis as the Hellbringer, which makes choosing a beginner IS mech difficult. As every IS mech has some compromises, I think the Warhammer 6R compromises the least. Its greatest strengths are its build variety, C-bill earnings, and longevity, while compromising a bit of new player friendliness. Because of its 7 torso-mounted hardpoints, the Warhammer 6R has an incredible number of viable build options. I'm only going to demo one build in this video, but just to list a few of the many other builds you can do, consider dual Gauss ERML, dual Ultra 5 dual PPC, dual LBX-10 and ERMLs, quad LPL, MRM-40 and large lasers, and so on. The 6R is only limited by your playstyle preferences and your creativity. Because of its good hardpoint locations and above average hitboxes, it's a solid performer even from the start and gets better as your piloting gets better, which leads to great C-bill earnings and excellent longevity. I think it sacrifices a little on new player friendliness since without the ECM, you're more vulnerable to positioning errors and missiles. But its ability to spread damage across its frontal profile and its arms help to mitigate the issue to a degree. And I think the other factors I mentioned make up for the loss of stealth. I started a new account and went through the academy and my first 25 matches and wound up with about 20 million C-bills to start with. I purposely contributed not very much to these matches so as to not exaggerate what a new player would be earning in the initial gameplay experiences. 20 million is more than enough to buy the Warhammer and all the upgrades we need. The initial build that I'm going to recommend is this UAC 10 medium laser setup. This is the same build that I'm running on my main account, so this isn't just a newbie build, but one that works for experienced players as well. Most of your firepower will come from the 2 ultra autocannons, and the medium lasers are simply there to supplement damage at low range. When you start to reach the upper 1/4 of your heat bar, I would suggest laying off the lasers and fire the autocannons alone. This build will run hot initially, but as you add skills to the mech, heat management will get easier. When you're running hot, stop using the lasers completely and rely just on the autocannons. If you still find it too hot, you can simply remove one medium laser for an additional ton of ammo. If you're unfamiliar with how to play Ultra Autocannons, I'll link my tutorial video in the description below. I highly suggest this video if you're new to the game. Just to give you the highlights of that video, Ultra Autocannons give you double the DPS or damage per second output compared to a regular autocannon, but it comes with a chance to jam and stop firing for some time. Consider that even when one of your two autocannons are jammed, it's still outputting the same damage as two regular autocannons. And when they're both unjammed, that's 4 regular autocannons worth of damage. This is the power behind ultra autocannons. The only downside is when both of your UX jam. To mitigate this, you have to position near cover or your teammates, which will allow you to hide and wait for the UX to unjam. I know some players will get the feeling that the ultra autocannons always jam at the wrong moment. However, this is only psychological, and the video I'll link down below will explain why statistically you will do more damage with ultras than with regular autocannons on average. There are 2 general engagement scenarios when you're running this build. First, if you're shooting at an enemy that's looking at you, you need to do as much damage as you can within a short period of time and get back to cover. Here you double tap the UX, which simply means you fire the UX again while it's cycling, and fire your medium lasers at the same time if the target is under about 400 meters. Beyond 400 meters, the damage output of the lasers aren't worth the heat generated. If you're not getting shot back, then continue firing your autocannons only, unless they both jam, in which case you can switch to your lasers. Again, if the enemy starts looking your way, you need to get back to cover. You'd also prefer to engage at under 350 meters if you can, because the autocannon rounds are somewhat slow and you'll miss less often at shorter range. For the skill tree, we'll first focus on the firepower tree to increase our cooldown speed and lower heat generation. The magazine capacity nodes and UX jam duration nodes are also very important. Next, we'll go down the operation tree to increase the heat dissipation of our heat sinks. These are the 2 most important trees since heat is the main thing that limits our damage output. Finally, we'll go down the durability tree. Good positioning far outweighs the effect of these extra armor and structure points, but sometimes a few points will save a component or weapon from being destroyed, so it's overall worth it. In the match demo that I'm about to show, I'm running the Warhammer Unskilled, so this is exactly how the mech will perform when you first buy it. Okay, let's get into a game. At the beginning of the match, I'm just trying to get into the range of my ultra autocannons. I stay low because, as I said earlier, I want to engage at 300 meters or under. Rubelite Oasis has multiple levels, and the upper level exposes you to long-range fire, so I try to stay under if I'm playing a shorter range mech. At the same time, I don't want to move too far ahead of my team, so I'm waiting here until they catch up.
Target acquired.
Target spotted.
New target acquired.
At this point, I see a Marauder 3R come up. This is a potentially dangerous mech and one that I don't want to 1v1, so I take an initial couple of shots and back off.
New target acquired.
Target spotted.
New target acquired.
The Centurion is an easier target to deal with, but as I explained before, if a mech is looking at you, fire off a burst of UX and lasers and back off. At this point, I realize that my team is not coming to assist me at the bottom level, so I need to rejoin my team in the upper levels. Since the enemy has already moved into range, I no longer need the lower level for cover, and taking the upper level gives me better firing positions.
New target acquired. Target acquired.
Most quick draws are energy-based builds, so I know it doesn't have the DPS to 1v1 me, so I can get aggressive and push on him. As a low DPS build, this quick draw pilot shouldn't have gotten so greedy and moved too far out of cover. As a result, he was almost killed.
New target acquired. Target destroyed. New target acquired. New target acquired.
With these 2 targets, you have the case where the enemy is not looking at you, and so you have the liberty to keep firing until you're heat limited. In that case, lay off the lasers and fire just the autocannons.
Target destroyed. New target acquired. New target acquired.
This Kodiak is looking at us, so shoot a burst and get back to cover.
New target acquired.
The enemy has moved out of range again, so I need to drop down and get in closer.
New target acquired.
This hill is a good piece of cover, so we can stay close to it and verify the enemy's position before pushing over. I thought this Kodiak ran away, but it stayed where it was, so I was in a little bit of trouble. But fortunately, I was able to draw him back to where my teammates were able to shoot him in the back. Again, he got too greedy and paid the price. There's no real reason for him to push up that far, and he could have used his high-mounted autocannons to shoot at me or other targets over the ridge.
New target acquired.
Target spotted.
You can see here how nice the ballistic hardpoints are on the Warhammer. They sit close to the cockpit so we can fire through this small gap in the terrain of the Nightjar. If the hardpoints are wide across the arms, the autocannon rounds would likely hit the pillar or the rock to the sides. While I was fighting the Hellfire, notice how I was moving back and forth, even though I wasn't getting shot at. This is so that in case there's an enemy that you're not aware of who's taking aim at you, it makes it harder for him to aim at specific components of your mech.
Acquired. New target acquired. Target acquired. New target acquired. Target acquired. New target acquired.
Even though this Nightjar is dangerous, it's also pretty hurt and a friendly is already engaging him, so I can help it make it at least a 2v1.
New target acquired.
With these series of engagements, I want to prioritize the larger mechs since they're easier to hit with the UX. The lasers are going to be more accurate against faster moving targets like the Mistlinks. Since my left side and CT are both open, I need to torso twist left after firing to protect that weaker side as much as possible. So I'm almost out of ammo now. Normally you won't run out of ammo with 5 tons, but this match was especially long. The magazine capacity nodes are also going to help when you get them.
Target
Target
acquired.
spotted.
This Mad Cat Mark 2B is especially dangerous, but we need to help and not just hang back and hide. The best way to engage it is to shoot at him from an angle that he's not looking at, so we move off to the side a little bit.
Ammo depleted.
He is legged, but he's twisted at an angle where I can't shoot the right leg as easily, so I fire at his CT.
Target acquired.
Well, this definitely turned out to be a more intense match than I expected, so the Warhammer had to do a lot of work to pull off that victory. Anyways guys, if you're watching this as a veteran player, I know the Warhammer 6R isn't the only viable option for new players, so please do help out and suggest mechs and builds in the comments below. If you're a new player, I will link my strategy guides playlist in the description, and I think it will really help you out. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you next time.